Hello! In this video, I talk with Toby Hole about Section 1 of Mission Action Planning. That's Vision, Purpose and Oversight Ministry. So Toby, if a church is already at stage 1 and they want to move to stage 2, it sounds like it's all about making connections. Is that right?
That's right, Hannah. If you think about a traditional model of doing church, the way that perhaps churches were run 30, 40 years ago, you'd have a vicar, you'd maybe have the church wardens, and they would hold much of the leadership between them. The problem is that can create a bit of a bottleneck. And in the way that we're doing church now, in the way that we're seeking to grow leadership away from just a small group of people, it's really good to make connections outside of those who would have in the past held formal positions of leadership. So if you're an Oversight Minister, you'll be wanting already, I hope, to connect with your Associate Archdeacon and receiving training from them, coaching from them. But now might be a good time to start thinking about how you can begin coaching those in the wider leadership team of your church as well. And think about who are the leaders in your church. So you might want to have a discussion in your PCC about how you can extend leadership from beyond just a small group of people. In some churches that might be a steering group. In other churches there might be a particular group of people that you gather together who are involved in worship, in communications, in different aspects of leadership. And you might want to meet with them regularly to see how the leadership of the church can grow.
I see.
And even beyond that, if we start thinking about mission areas, again in the past we've just looked at one parish, one vicar, but now we're looking at how mission areas work. How can you as a church work with other churches in your mission area? Perhaps you're not doing anything at the moment, but can you meet together to pray together? Can you meet together to start planning things together? Making those connections so that actually you can grow leadership and grow ministry away from just small groups of people.
That's really helpful, thank you. So now let's think about how a church might move from stage 2 to stage 3. Can you give me some examples?
Thanks, Hannah. Well, if stage 1 to stage 2 was about making connections, then stage 2 to stage 3 is about building connections. So a church has done their mission action planning, and that's great. But the worst thing that can happen now is it's put in a filing cabinet, left for 4 years, and then sometime in the future you go back to it and see all the things you haven't done.
Oh dear.
So you really need to ensure that the mission action plan is at the heart of what the PCC's planning is in the years ahead. Now, the simple way of doing that is to make sure that your PCC agenda has your priorities on it every single time as standing items. So whenever you meet, you can say, where have we got to on this? How are we going to progress it? What targets have been met? And so forth. So that's one straightforward way of ensuring that mission action planning is kept live and present. Another thing you'll want to do is actually start building your leadership team around the mission action planning priorities. So if you're able to identify particular people who have a passion for one priority, then make sure they're involved all the time. Perhaps they can even build little teams around them as well. And then the key is making sure that you're able to communicate that vision wider to the church. I think one of the really good ways of doing this is working with people who are new to the church. So if your church isn't doing it already, why not have a welcome lunch once a year? And anyone who comes to that, you can talk to them about the priorities that you've come from your mission action plan. And then they will start accepting that right away as being part of the vision that your church has. It's a really good opportunity also for APCMs, your annual parochial meetings, to bring the mission action plan out and saying, let's celebrate what we have done the last year and let's look forward to what we can do in the year ahead.
That makes a lot of sense. So Toby, we've talked about making connections and then building upon those connections. So what's next for a church that is at stage 3 and they want to move to stage 4?
Well, if you're at stage 3, you've clearly got a pretty well-functioning team working across all areas. So I think now we're at the stage where we're looking to extend connections, extending connections across the whole of the church and across the mission area as well. So one of the things I think is really important is to make sure that the whole congregation understand and have bought into the vision that was originally put forward through mission action planning. An easy way to do this is to make sure that every now and then in sermons your vision is preached upon and referred to. It's part of worship. But a really practical way can be looking at the simple matter of finances and accounts. Lots of people give money to their church, and many of us give money and don't really think about what happens to it. But if we have a really big project as part of our vision, reordering the church building, employing a children's youth families worker, it's really good to let people know that the money they're given is going straight into the vision that we have agreed on. So allow people to see that what they're doing and what they're giving is part of the wider picture, that the church will be transformed because of the sacrifices that people are making.
Yes.
On another level, think about the leadership team. Again, if you're at section 3, level 3, you're already going to be having a well-functioning leadership team. But how can we equip them better? The church invests lots of resources into equipping clergy, but we really need to equip people in the wider team of the church. CPAS, Church Pastoral Aid Society, have a course called Growing Leaders, which a lot of churches in the diocese use, and I've used myself. It's really good. So I'd recommend thinking about that as a first way of equipping leaders in the church. And then finally, let's think about the mission area again. Extending connections means building a functioning mission area that works really well across all levels. So what can we do as a mission area? In my previous time as a parish priest, we ran Growing Leaders across all our 4 churches. We did baptism prep and marriage prep. We ran Lent courses together. There are all sorts of ways in which we can work together and do things better as a group rather than as individuals. But also by doing that, we enable people to be empowered as leaders across a mission area and not just in one church.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Great. So to summarise, a church, they need to start off by making connections and beginning to kind of share that vision, and then they need to build upon those connections and relationships, and then finally, to reach stage 4, for everything to be kind of really woven into church life, they need to extend their connections and think about how they're working together as a mission area.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.